My stepmom kicked me out because I made her uncomfortable, and my dad said nothing. Then I found out the house was always mine and took full control. He tried to switch sides, but I evicted them all. So here's the thing about grief. It makes people do stupid things. My dad's stupid thing was marrying Linda 6 months after my mom passed away. I was 15, still wearing black to school, still finding my mom's hair on my pillow sometimes, and this woman was already measuring for new curtains. Linda moved in like she was conducting some kind of hostile takeover. The family photos came down first, every single one. Mom and Dad's wedding photo, my baby pictures with Mom holding me, the vacation photos from that trip to the coast where Mom taught me to bodyboard. All of it boxed up and moved to the attic within her first week. Then my mom's books disappeared from the shelves. Her favorite dishes vanished from the cabinets, those curtains she'd sewn by hand during my childhood. The ones with the little flowers that she'd spent 3 weekends perfecting gone overnight, replaced with this sterile gray minimalist aesthetic that made our home look like a dentist's office waiting room. "We all need to move forward," Linda announced at dinner one night, using that fake sympathetic voice that made my skin crawl. "Living in a shrine to the past isn't healthy for any of us. We need to create new memories in this space." Fresh energy. Dad just nodded along puppet on a string. Didn't even look up from his plate. I said nothing, just quietly moved my mom's recipe box to my room that night before it could vanish into whatever void had swallowed everything else she'd touched. That recipe box was the last thing she'd used before she got too sick to cook. Her handwriting was still on the index cards inside. I wasn't letting Linda anywhere near it. The uncomfortable comment started small, subtle enough that if I complained, I'd look crazy. That's the thing about people like Linda. They're smart about how they operate. Never anything overt enough to call out just this constant drip, drip, drip of little jabs and passive-aggressive moves that slowly drive you insane while maintaining plausible deniability. I left dishes in the sink once after a late shift at my part-time job. Just once. Linda called a family meeting about respecting shared spaces. An actual formal meeting with an agenda about 2 plates and a fork. I stayed up studying until midnight for finals. Linda complained that my desk lamp bothered her from across the hall through 2 closed doors in a house with 3,000 square feet. She actually used the phrase sleep hygiene concerns with a straight face. Then I came home one day and found my bedroom door didn't have a lock anymore. Someone had removed the entire mechanism, just gone like it had never existed. The holes were still there where the hardware used to be, but the lock itself had vanished. "Privacy concerns," Linda explained when I asked. Her voice had that syrupy sweetness that made my teeth hurt. "We're a family now. Families don't lock doors. It's about trust and openness." I wanted to point out that families also don't erase dead mothers like they never existed, but I kept my mouth shut. I was learning that survival in this house meant staying invisible, meant picking my battles, meant swallowing about 1,000 things I wanted to say every single day. When I turned 17, she ramped up the campaign significantly, stopped being subtle about it. My presence made her anxious. My schedule disrupted her routine. She felt like a guest in her own home. The irony of that last one almost made me laugh out loud. Dad would just sigh and ask if I could try harder to get along with her. This man, my own father, asking me to try harder with the woman who'd thrown away my mother's wedding china because it clashed with her new color scheme. The china that had been in Mom's family for 3 generations gone in a single afternoon while I was at school. I started spending more time at the library, at friends' houses, at coffee shops, doing homework until closing time. Anywhere but home. Because it didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like enemy territory. Like I was an intruder in the house where I'd learned to walk. Where Mom had taught me to read, where every corner used to hold a memory. And now every corner just reminded me of what was gone. The worst part was watching Dad just go along with all of it. He'd been my hero once. The guy who taught me to ride a bike, who stayed up late, helping me with science projects, who held me when Mom first got diagnosed and promised everything would be okay. That guy was gone now, replaced by this hollow man who flinched whenever Linda raised her voice and couldn't meet my eyes at the dinner table. Then one morning, I walked into the kitchen to grab some coffee before school. Linda was sitting at the table with a woman I didn't recognize. They had floor plans spread out between them. Real estate agent, I figured, looking at the business cards scattered around. Once she goes to college in the fall, Linda was saying, gesturing at what I now realized were plans of our house. We can finally convert that bedroom into a proper home office. The natural light in there is perfect. She was talking about my room, my mom's old sewing room that she'd converted into my nursery when she was pregnant with me. The room where I'd grown up. "I got into state school," I said quietly from the doorway. They both jumped. "I'm commuting to save money living at home." The temperature in that kitchen dropped about 30 degrees. Linda's face went through about 6 different expressions before settling on barely contained rage. The real estate agent suddenly found her paperwork very interesting. That afternoon, Linda cornered me in the hallway outside my room. Her mask was completely off now. No more fake warmth, no more pretend family bonding. "I think it's time we had an honest conversation," she said, blocking my path. "You need to understand something. This is my home now. I've been patient. I've tried to make this work, but your presence here makes me deeply uncomfortable. I need you to start making other arrangements." I just stared at her. This woman who'd spent 2 years systematically erasing my mother from existence, who'd turned my grieving father into a spineless yes man, who was now standing in my mother's house telling me I needed to leave. Before I could respond, Dad appeared from his office down the hall. He'd clearly heard everything. For once, he wasn't looking at his shoes. He wasn't finding somewhere else to be. He was looking right at Linda. "Linda," he said. His voice was different, flat cold. "Whose name is on the deed?" The color drained from her face so fast I thought she might pass out. "Well, both of ours, but wrong just mine." The silence that followed was deafening. This was Rebecca's house. My mother's name hung in the air like a ghost. Like she'd walked right into the room with us. She left it to me in trust for our daughter. "You're a guest here, Linda. You've always been a guest." I'd never heard him sound like that, never seen him stand up to anyone, let alone her. Linda's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. "But you said—" "I said a lot of things," Dad interrupted. "I was grieving. I wasn't thinking clearly. That ends now." The next morning I found legal documents on the kitchen counter. Official looking, lots of whereases and hereby stamped and notarized and everything. I read through them twice to make sure I understood what I was seeing. Dad had transferred 50% ownership of the house directly to me. At 17 years old, I was now a co-owner of the property I'd grown up in. He must have had these drawn up overnight. Must have called a lawyer the second Linda went to bed. That's how rattled he was after that confrontation in the hallway. Linda moved into the guest room that night, didn't say a word at dinner, just picked at her food and excused herself early. She stopped making eye contact with me entirely after that, would leave a room when I entered, would eat at different times to avoid sitting at the same table. The temperature in the house was Arctic. But for the first time in 2 years, I could breathe. But here's the thing. Dad didn't know. What neither of them knew. What nobody knew except me and a dead woman. 2 years earlier, while cleaning out boxes in the attic, I'd found something. A journal. My mom's journal from the year she died. Blue leather cover. Her name embossed in gold on the front. I'd opened it expecting memories. Maybe some recipes. Notes about her garden, the kinds of things a dying mother might want to leave behind for her daughter. What I found instead was detailed entries about how she'd discovered Dad's affair with Linda, his secretary at the time, 6 months before her cancer diagnosis. She'd found emails, text messages, a hotel receipt that fell out of his jacket pocket when she was doing laundry. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely turn the pages, but I kept reading every word, every date, every piece of evidence she documented with the precision of a prosecutor building a case. I'd kept that journal hidden under a loose floorboard in my closet waiting, not sure for what, just knowing that someday I might need it. Knowing that information was power, knowing that Mom had documented everything for a reason. Now with 50% of the house in my name and Linda spiraling out of control down the hall, I pulled it out again because that journal contained something else. Something I'd almost missed the first time I read it. Evidence that Mom had started divorce proceedings, notes about meetings with a lawyer, asset lists, property valuations, and tucked in the back pages, photocopies of documents that suggested she'd planned to leave Dad under very specific conditions. Conditions he'd violated. Conditions that, according to the lawyer's notes, would trigger a clause that could change everything about who owned what. The lawyer's name was inscribed on every page. William Foster, attorney at law, careful handwriting, detailed notes, a man who clearly knew exactly what he was doing. His office was still listed online. I checked from the library computer. Still practicing family law in the same building downtown after all these years. I called him from a friend's house, not wanting the call to show up on our home phone records. Paranoid maybe, but I'd learned a lot about self-preservation in the past 2 years. I'd learned that information was currency. That timing was everything, that you don't show your cards until you're ready to play them. "Mr. Foster, my name is Mia Callahan. I'm Rebecca Callahan's daughter." The silence on the other end stretched so long I thought we'd been disconnected. I could hear him breathing, could almost hear him thinking. "I've been wondering when you'd call," he said finally. His voice was steady, careful, measured. How much do you know? Everything. I have the journal and your notes. Another pause. Longer this time. Can you come to my office? Not today. Saturday morning when your father usually golfs. We need to talk in person. There are things I need to show you. I agreed. Hung up. Stood in my friend's kitchen with my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Saturday couldn't come fast enough. That Saturday I told Dad I was meeting friends at the mall. Standard teenage excuse. Linda was locked in the guest room like she'd been all week nursing her wounded ego. Dad barely looked up from his newspaper when I left. He'd been avoiding real conversations since that night in the hallway. Couldn't look at me without guilt written all over his face. Foster's office was in an old building downtown, the kind of building that doesn't exist anymore in most cities. Brass fixtures polished to a mirror-shine dark wood paneling that smelled like lemon oil and old money. The elevator still had an actual operator. I half expected to see men in three-piece suits with pocket watches walking around. His office was on the fourth-floor corner unit, with windows overlooking the courthouse across the street. Foster himself was in his late 60s, with white hair and the kind of calm demeanor that suggested he'd seen it all twice. Nothing was going to rattle this man. Your mother was an exceptional woman, he said, gesturing for me to sit across from his massive oak desk. When she came to me with evidence of your father's infidelity, she was devastated, but she was also practical. She knew a divorce would destroy her financially while she was fighting cancer. Medical bills were already astronomical. So she stayed, I said. Not a question. She stayed. But she wasn't naive. She had me draft documents that would protect you. He pulled out a thick folder and set it on the desk between us. Your mother owned this house outright before she married your father. It was her grandmother's passed down through her family for 4 generations. She put it in a trust specifically designed to keep it out of the marital estate and away from any divorce proceedings. But Dad said she left it to him in trust for me. That's what those documents yesterday were about. Foster's expression hardened, his jaw tightened. Your father lied. Your mother left the house directly to you with a trustee to manage it until you turned 18. I'm that trustee. Your father has been living there at my discretion, which I granted out of respect for your need for stability as a minor. But legally, he has no claim to the property. Never did. The room was spinning. I gripped the arms of my chair. What? The house has been yours since your mother died. Mia, the property transfer your father showed you this week. Meaningless. He can't transfer what he never owned. I sat back trying to process. 2 years of walking on eggshells. 2 years of feeling like a guest in my own home. 2 years of watching Linda erase my mother piece by piece while Dad stood there and let it happen. Does he know, I finally asked? That he doesn't own it? He knows. I told him at the reading of the will. He chose to ignore it, hoping you'd never find out. Hoping you'd go off to college and never look too closely at the paperwork. Foster slid the folder across the desk toward me. This is everything. The deed trust documents, photocopies of your mother's journal entries, documentation of the affair, financial records showing how your father has been mismanaging funds that should have been preserved for you. I opened the folder with shaking hands. Bank statements showing Dad had withdrawn money from Mom's accounts before she died. Receipts for jewelry he'd bought Linda while Mom was still in chemotherapy. Email printouts between them that made my stomach turn. There's more, Foster said quietly. Your mother had a life insurance policy, $500,000. It was supposed to go into a college fund for you. Your father cashed it out and used it to pay off his business debts. The rage that flooded through me was cold, precise. Not the hot anger I'd felt before. This was something different, something calculated. What can I do, I asked. Legally, you can evict them both. Today, you're 17, but as the property owner with documented trustee approval, you have that right. Or you can wait until you're 18 in 4 months and handle it then with full legal autonomy. Either way, they have no leg to stand on. I thought about Linda in the guest room, probably already planning her next move to push me out. I thought about Dad's fake property transfer, his complicity, his weakness, the way they'd been trying to erase Mom while living in her house, spending her money, sleeping in her bed. I want to wait, I said, until I'm 18. But I want everything ready to go the day I turn 18. Foster smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. I was hoping you'd say that. Over the next 4 months, I played the perfect daughter. Agreeable, quiet, invisible, the kind of teenager every stepmother dreams about having. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Whatever you say, ma'am. It was exhausting. Every day felt like a performance. But I kept my eyes on the prize. 4 months wasn't that long. I'd survived 2 years of Linda's campaign. I could survive 16 more weeks of playing nice while the fuse burned down to nothing. I got a part-time job at a bookstore downtown and started saving every penny. Opened a separate account at a different bank, cash deposits only, nothing that could be traced or questioned. I made sure my grades were flawless, perfect attendance, extra credit on every assignment, applied to colleges with my guidance counselor's help, made all the right noises about my future, attended family dinners without complaint. I was building a paper trail of model behavior, something that would look good later if anyone questioned my character or my decisions. At home, the dynamic had shifted in weird ways. Linda stayed in the guest room most of the time, only emerging for meals. She'd stopped her commentary about my presence, stopped trying to control my schedule or complain about my lamp. She'd gone quiet, watchful. Dad walked around like a ghost, his guilt finally catching up to him, I figured. I caught him looking at Mom's old photos sometimes, the ones I'd rescued from the trash and hidden in my room. He never asked where I'd found them, never acknowledged what he'd let Linda do to Mom's memory. One night in January, 2 months before my birthday, he knocked on my door. "Can we talk?" I let him in. He sat on the edge of my bed, looking older than I'd ever seen him, smaller somehow. "I know I failed you," he said, his voice cracked halfway through. "After your mother died, I wasn't thinking straight. Linda was there, and I was drowning, and I made mistakes. You had an affair with her before Mom died." His face went white. "How did you—" "I know everything, Dad. Everything." He didn't try to deny it, just sat there, shoulder slumped, defeated. "I loved your mother. I did, but I was weak. I'm still weak. And I've let you down in every way that matters. I could have forgiven him in that moment, could have tried to rebuild something. But then I thought about Mom, sitting in chemotherapy alone while he bought Linda jewelry. I thought about her journals, her pain, her attempts to protect me even while she was dying." "Yeah," I said. "You did." He left without another word. The weeks leading up to my birthday were strange, tense in a way that made the air feel thick. Everyone knew something was coming. We just didn't acknowledge it. Like those moments before a thunderstorm when everything goes quiet and you can feel the electricity building. Linda became almost invisible, spending entire days locked in the guest room. I'd hear her on the phone sometimes, voice sharp and angry, muffled through the door, but definitely not happy. Probably telling her sister or friends how unfair everything was, how she was the victim in all this. Poor Linda married a widower and somehow ended up the bad guy. Life is so unfair. Dad tried to act normal. It was almost painful to watch. Small talk at breakfast about the weather, questions about school, forced cheerfulness that fooled absolutely no one. But his eyes were hollow. He knew something was coming. He just didn't know what or when or how bad it would be. I spent those weeks planning with the precision of a military operation. Met with Foster twice more, going over every detail until I could recite the legal strategy in my sleep. He helped me open a bank account in my name, only at a completely different institution than the one Dad used. Helped me understand property taxes, utilities, homeowners, insurance, all the practical things I'd need to manage as a property owner at 18 years old. He even connected me with a property management company that could help if things got overwhelming. Your mother thought of everything he told me during our last meeting before my birthday. She knew your father would fall apart without her, knew he'd make poor choices, so she built safety nets for you. Did she know about Linda before she died? I asked. Yes. She confronted your father about 6 months before the end. He promised to break it off. Obviously, he didn't. Foster's jaw tightened. Your mother made me promise to tell you the truth when you were old enough. She didn't want you thinking she was naive or weak. She stayed because leaving would have destroyed you both financially during her treatment, but she never forgave him. I thought about Mom in those last months, how quiet she'd been, how she'd spent hours writing in her journals, making lists, having whispered phone conversations. I'd thought it was the medication making her distant. Now I understood she'd been building a fortress around me brick by brick, knowing she wouldn't be there to protect me herself. My 18th birthday fell on a Tuesday. I went to school like normal. Came home to find Dad had ordered a cake-made dinner. Linda even emerged from the guest room to sit at the table, though she looked like she'd rather be literally anywhere else on the planet. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," Dad said, sliding an envelope across the table. "I know things have been hard, but you're an adult now. We're so proud of you." Inside the envelope was a check for $5,000 for college, he said. "Help you get started." I folded it carefully and put it in my pocket. "Thanks. I actually have something to tell you both." They looked at each other nervously. Good. They should be nervous. I met with William Foster, Mom's lawyer. Dad's fork clattered against his plate. Turns out the house isn't yours, Dad. It never was. Mom left it directly to me. You've been living here at the trustee's discretion. My discretion as of today. The color drained from his face. Linda's hand flew to her mouth. I'm giving you 30 days to move out, both of you. Foster already has the paperwork filed. You'll find the official eviction notice posted on the door tomorrow morning. You can't do this, Dad said. His voice was cracking. This is my home. No, it's mine. It's always been mine. You lied about that, just like you lied about everything else. Linda stood up so fast her chair toppled over behind her. You ungrateful little after everything we've done for you? Everything you've done, I laughed. It came out wrong. Cold, hard. You threw away my mother's things. You tried to erase her from her own house. You wanted to kick me out so you could have a home office. Don't talk to me about what you've done. Dad was crying now. Actual tears. Please, we can work this out. I'll do better. You had 3 years to do better. I stood up from the table. You chose Linda over Mom while she was dying. You chose Linda over me after she was gone. Now you get to live with those choices. I walked to my room, locked the door, sat on my bed, and waited for the shaking to stop. They tried everything over the next month. And I mean everything. Dad begged, made promises he had no intention of keeping. Swear he'd changed. Swear things would be different. Swear he'd make Linda leave if I'd just give him another chance. The same empty words he'd been saying for 3 years. Linda threatened legal action until Foster sent her a certified letter outlining exactly how much trouble she could get in for harassment. Given the documented history of her campaign to push me out, that shut her up fast. They offered to pay rent, offered to stay in the guest room and leave me alone, offered to give me the master bedroom and the entire upstairs. Offered to pretend we were a normal functional family while I finished college. They got creative with the bargaining. I'll give them that much. I said no to all of it. Every single offer. No hesitation, no negotiation. The time for deals had passed about 2 years ago when Linda threw away Mom's wedding china. During the second week, Linda's facade slipped completely. All that careful composure she'd maintained, all that fake sweetness and victim energy gone. I came home from work to find her in the kitchen in the middle of the afternoon, eyes wild, makeup smeared, looking like she hadn't slept in days. This is all your fault, she spat when she saw me. Her voice was raw, unhinged. Your mother was manipulative. She turned your father against his own happiness. She poisoned everything. Even from the grave, she's still ruining my life. My mother was dying of cancer while you were sleeping with her husband. I set my bag down carefully. Don't talk to me about manipulation. She could have divorced him. She chose to stay and make everyone miserable. She stayed because Dad wiped out their savings on bad investments, and she needed his insurance to cover her treatment. But you knew that, didn't you? You were his secretary. You saw the accounts. You knew exactly what she was dealing with. Linda's face twisted. Your father loved me. Loved me. She was just too sick and bitter to let him go. Get out of my house. It's not your house yet. We still have 2 weeks. Get out of my sight then. Before I call Foster and have you removed today, she stumbled past me, muttering under her breath. I heard her slam the guest room door. That night, I slept with a chair wedged under my doorknob. Trusting her seemed like a good way to wake up with the house on fire. Dad tried a different approach. He started leaving notes everywhere. Kitchen counter taped to my door, tucked into my textbooks. Long rambling apologies, explanations about his grief, his weakness, his poor choices, how he knew he'd failed Mom and me, how he wished he could go back and do everything differently. I threw them all away without reading past the first few lines. On day 22, I got a phone call from someone I hadn't heard from since the funeral. My mom's sister, Aunt Christine. Your father called me, she said without preamble. He's devastated, says you're kicking him out of his own home. It's not his home, it's mine. Mom left it to me. Silence. Then Rebecca never told me that. She didn't tell anyone. She wanted to protect me. More silence. Your father said you found out about Linda. Yeah, I knew about her, Aunt Christine said quietly. During Rebecca's treatment, I saw them together at a restaurant when I was in town for a conference. Your mother made me promise not to say anything, said she had a plan. She did. This was it. Your father is calling everyone, Christine continued. Your mother's friends, our family trying to paint you as vindictive and cruel, trying to get someone to intervene. Let him. I'm not going to. Her voice was firm. I thought you should know that Rebecca would be proud of you. After we hung up, I sat in the dark living room. Someone else knew the truth. Someone else saw what Dad had done. I wasn't crazy, wasn't vindictive, I was just protecting what was mine. On day 28, I came home to find them packing boxes everywhere, bubble wrap scattered across the floor, packing tape guns, labels the systematic dismantling of a life built on lies. 3 years of Linda's gray aesthetic being stuffed into cardboard boxes and hauled toward the front door. Linda wouldn't look at me, kept her head down, moved boxes without speaking. Dad kept starting sentences he couldn't finish. Would open his mouth, think better of it, and go back to taping up another box. "Where will you go?" I asked. Not because I cared, just curious how far they'd fall. "Linda's sister has a place," Dad said quietly. "We'll stay there until we figure things out. It's not far. About 2 hours. What about your business, selling it to pay back what I took from your mother's accounts?" Foster made it very clear that was non-negotiable if I wanted to avoid criminal charges. He's got documentation of everything. Every withdrawal, every transfer, every cent that was supposed to be yours. Good. Linda tried to take some of Mom's jewelry on day 29. Claimed Dad had given it to her as gifts. I called Foster. He sent over a detailed inventory of Mom's possessions that she'd compiled before dying. Every piece of jewelry, every book, every dish, every item of value documented with photographs and descriptions. Everything Linda claimed was on that list. "Put it back," I said, "or I file theft charges today." She threw the jewelry box at my head. I caught it, put it in my room, locked the door, let her rage in the hallway for 20 minutes before she finally gave up and went back to packing. On their last day, I watched from the porch as they loaded boxes into a rental truck. The house already felt lighter, like it was exhaling for the first time in years, like Mom's presence was seeping back into the walls now that Linda's gray energy was being hauled away in cardboard boxes. Dad paused at the door on his way out. His face was gaunt. He'd aged 10 years in 30 days. "I'm sorry," he said. "Your mother deserved better. You deserved better. I know sorry doesn't fix anything, but I needed to say it." Yeah, we did. They drove away. I went back inside and started working immediately. No time to process, no time to sit with feelings. There was work to do. The master bedroom was first. Linda's gray paint went under a warm cream that made the room feel twice as bright. I hung Mom's favorite curtains, the ones I'd hidden in the attic the week after the funeral when I saw Linda eyeing them. Found her bedding in a storage unit Dad had rented downtown and brought it all back. Her quilts, her throw pillows, the Afghan her grandmother had made. The living room was next. Soft sage green, Mom's favorite color, the color she'd always wanted to paint it, but Dad had vetoed. I hung her artwork back on the walls. Her watercolors of the ocean from our vacation. Her pressed flowers in delicate frames. The family photos that Linda had boxed up went back on the mantel. Found her piano at Aunt's house. She'd asked to store it before Dad could sell it, hired movers to bring it home. It looked perfect in the corner by the window right where it used to be. The kitchen took the longest. Buttery yellow paint, new hardware on the cabinets, and Mom's dishes. Her grandmother's china that Linda had sold. I tracked them down at 3 different consignment shops around town. Spent weekends driving to antique stores and estate sales. Called every secondhand shop within 50 miles. It took me 2 months and cost most of my savings from the bookstore. But I got every single piece back. Every plate, every bowl, every serving dish, all of it back where it belonged. While I was restoring the house, Aunt Christine showed up with a box of documents. "Rebecca made me executor of her estate after you turned 18, she explained, spreading papers across the kitchen table. "There are more accounts, more assets than what Foster told you about. She wanted you to have them in stages so you'd learn to manage money gradually." "What do you mean more?" Turns out Mom came from old money. Her grandmother's estate was substantial. There were properties in 2 states that had been in her family for generations. Investment accounts, a trust fund she'd kept completely separate from the marriage. All of it hidden from Dad, all of it protected. "Why didn't she use any of this when she was sick?" I asked. "If she'd revealed these assets, your father would have claimed them in the divorce proceedings. Community property laws. She would have had to split everything. This way everything stays with you. Clean, legal, untouchable. Your mother was the smartest person I ever knew. The house was just the beginning. There were rental properties generating monthly income, stocks and bonds. A college fund she'd established when I was born that Dad never knew existed. Properties generating passive income, a financial foundation that would support me for the rest of my life if I was smart about it. I enrolled in community college and kept working at the bookstore. My manager, Helen, was a woman in her 60s who'd known Mom from the neighborhood. She'd been at the funeral, had brought casseroles in those first terrible weeks. Your mother used to come in every week, Helen told me one day while we were restocking shelves. Always bought books about business, finance, real estate investing. Said she was planning for the future. I think she meant you. I'm retiring next year, she said a few months later. Been thinking about selling the store rather than closing it. You interested? Foster helped structure the purchase as a loan with manageable payments. I used some of Mom's smaller accounts as a down payment. Helen taught me everything over the next year. Inventory management vendor, relationships, the quirks of the neighborhood regulars who'd been shopping there for decades, the rhythms of the business, the seasonal patterns, everything she'd learned in 30 years of running the place. The sale went through in April, 1 year after my 18th birthday. Helen handed me the keys with tears in her eyes. Make it something special, she said. Your mother would be proud. I renamed it Rebecca's Books within a week, had a new sign made, painted the interior in warm, welcoming colors, created a children's section full of diverse books and comfortable reading nooks with beanbag chairs and soft lighting, added a coffee bar in the corner, hired 2 part-time employees, started hosting author events and book clubs on weeknight evenings. Business took off immediately. People who'd known Mom came by to share memories and became regular customers. Word spread through the neighborhood fast. The daughter of Rebecca Callahan had reopened the old bookstore and named it after her mother. People came out of curiosity at first, kept coming back because the place felt warm, felt like someone actually cared. I displayed her favorite books in the window, created a Rebecca's shelf with all the titles she'd loved, put a small plaque beneath her photo explaining who she was, what she meant to me. 6 months after the eviction, Dad called. Linda and I are separating, he said. His voice sounded hollow. She's moving back east, going to stay with family. I wanted you to know, okay, I don't expect forgiveness, but if you ever want to talk, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I hung up. A year later, he called again. Different tone this time, quieter. Something had changed. I sold the business and paid back every cent I took from your mother's accounts plus interest. Foster has all the records, every penny documented and transferred. Why now? Because I'm dying. Pancreatic cancer. 6 months, maybe less. Doctors found it too late. Nothing they can do. I met him at a diner. He looked terrible, gaunt and yellow and old, like he'd aged 20 years in 12 months. We talked for an hour. He told me about Mom, about their early years when things were good, about how fear and weakness turned him into someone he didn't recognize. I'm not going to say I forgive you, I told him. I don't, but I don't hate you either. That's more than I deserve. He died 2 months later. Linda didn't come to the funeral, didn't even send flowers. It was just me and Christine and Foster and a handful of Dad's old colleagues who barely remembered him anymore. Afterward, Foster pulled me aside in the parking lot. He left you about $40,000 after the business sale and debts. What do you want done with it? Donate it to a cancer research charity in Mom's name. Every cent. While sorting through Dad's personal effects at his apartment, I found a box of letters he'd written to Mom but never sent. Letters from after her diagnosis about his fear, his guilt. I read them once. They explained some things. Didn't excuse anything, just explained. I put them in a drawer and never looked at them again. Last month, I got a message from Linda through social media. Long and rambling, full of excuses and apologies. She wanted closure, wanted to explain her side of things, how she'd fallen in love with a broken man, how things got complicated. I deleted it without responding, blocked her account. Some people don't deserve closure. Some doors stay shut. I'm 21 now, running Rebecca's Books full-time while finishing my business degree online. The store is thriving. I've partnered with local schools for literacy programs and started hosting writing workshops. Added a used book section that's become popular with college students. I live in Mom's house, the one that was always meant to be mine, fully restored now. Every room exactly how she would have wanted it. The rental properties bring in steady income. The investments grow quietly. I live comfortably. I still work full-time because I love it, not because I need to. 2 weeks ago, I was restocking shelves when a woman walked in, mid-40s, nervous energy, professional clothes. She spent 20 minutes wandering around before approaching the counter. Are you Mia, Rebecca's daughter? Yeah. I worked with your father years ago before Linda at his first company. I just wanted to say your mother came into the office once to surprise your dad for lunch. She saw something she shouldn't have. I always wondered if she knew, if that's why she seemed so sad toward the end. She knew, I said. She knew everything. The woman nodded slowly. I'm glad you got the house. I'm glad you have this place. She paused at the door. Your mother was the smartest person in every room she walked into. Everyone said that. Looks like you inherited that. She left. I went back to stocking shelves just another day.